Mahama.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'est un honneur d'inviter son Excellence John Dramani Mahama, le président de la République du Ghana.
Thank you. Please, kindly be seated. Thank you very much, my sister, Anne Motley. Thank you. I acknowledge the Vice Chairman of the National House of Chiefs, our traditional rulers, the Speaker, Vice Speaker of the Algerian Parliament, Dr. Julius Gave. Thank you for that very moving address. And let me thank everybody who has stayed with us. I've attended many international conferences. By the second day, the steam is lost. And you see so many empty chairs. And people have made a beeline to the airports and left. This is different. It shows the value of what we have discussed over the last 3 days. I want to thank the technical team and all those who did the pre-work before we arrived here. I want to thank all those who took part in all the plenaries, the panels, the opening ceremony, which was interminably long, but the hall remained full even during the opening ceremony when we closed at almost 3 p.m. And to thank all those who worked again this morning to finish the outcome document. It's been an honor to receive that outcome document, and it is my hope that the framework that we have established would actually achieve the next steps that we have been looking for. Our voices were fragmented for decades, and it served the interests of some groups to keep those voices fragmented. And so narratives were spun in the Caribbean. Why are you making, a union with Africa from where you were taking? You deserve reparations more than any other person. Same in America, same in Latin America. The slave trade affected all of us emotionally and painfully. We watched that enactment. The enactment shows the various stages that the slaves went through. The raiders who went to the communities and took people's sons and daughters. In this reenactment, you saw the actresses and the actors who were crying for their daughters, Ayanda, and the several other names they were mentioning. In pain, these were their loved ones that they would never see again. That fracture of families. In many communities, the raiders took all the virile men and women away and left just the old and weak. How they survived with the most productive part of the population gone, how they survived is part of the pain of slavery. And then to talk about those who were taken away and marched, in some cases, 700 kilometers from the slave markets in the north. The torture they felt along the way, the shipping they endured if they faltered or fell. And we saw the arrival at the castle in its true state, reenacted, like Anne Motley said, by a very good performance of our School of Performing Arts. And I believe that that's an ace performance that we must take outside to all parts of the diaspora. And already I've discussed with the Prime Minister when they unveiled the monument to slavery, we are bringing our School of Performing Arts to reenact that performance in Barbados. The suffering they endured in the dungeons while they waited for months for the slave ships to arrive. And then the walk down the door of no return onto the beach. And the guide told us that for some of them, they were very bewildered because some of them came from the interior of Africa and had never seen an ocean before. So just seeing that vast expanse of water with the waves, crashing was a horrible experience for them. And you saw the little canoes they were loaded on to board the slave ships that were anchored about 200 meters away. And the most torturous one was a journey across the Middle Passage. Very little food, chained, shackled into ships. Ships were lost at sea with the whole cargo of slaves. In some cases, there were rebellions, and some slaves jumped overboard. Death was preferable to what they were going through. And then arriving in what they called the new lands, and seeing themselves in a completely different environment, not knowing what was awaiting them. And then suddenly, the change of your identity, your indigenous name was lost, and you were given Toby, instead of Kofi, Toby, Cassius, and then to the plantations to provide labor that was free. And it leads us to what we're celebrating and commemorating today. That's Juneteenth. We recognize those who fought for the abolition of slavery. But even after the abolition, just when we walked through the castle, there was another tunnel, a door, that led several hundred meters outside the castle. And even when it had been enforced that slaves were no longer going to go through that castle, the dungeons had been cleared, slaves were kept in different places, smuggled through the tunnel, still brought onto the beach and loaded onto ships. But Juneteenth is about our comrades in the United States who 2 years after the Emancipation Act had been signed, that said that all slaves were free, only heard about their freedom 2 years after. And so even though the Emancipation Act had been signed, they remained slaves for another 2 years until information was brought to them that they were free men and women. And that is why they celebrate Juneteenth. And I'm happy that for the first time, we're beginning to speak with one voice. And this is just one such example of speaking with one voice, that us and our brothers and sisters in the United States, even as they celebrate Juneteenth, are celebrating it with them here, the origin of whatever took place. We are celebrating them too, for their resilience, for their survival, for their strength, for their faith. And so we'll work together with one voice, as we did, to move this resolution in the General Assembly, because in unity lies strength. And all of us were seared by the brutality of that slave trade. After the UN General Assembly, several of our partners asked me, say, so after that, what next? And I said, well, just wait. We did this together. We must decide the next steps together. And that's why Ghana took it upon itself to call for this Next Steps conference. And I want to thank all those who worked since yesterday till today to come with the outcome document. So let this outcome document be the platform for how we forge ahead together in unity, so that together we can achieve the justice that was denied our forebears, not only in terms of restitution and reparation, but also in the fight of creating a more just world. Like Anne Motley said, the iniquities of the slave trade still remain. And the demographic that slavery affected is still the poorest part of this world, because the world is rigged against the descendants of slaves and the victims of slavery. And so our work goes beyond reparations. It goes beyond return of artifacts. It goes into advocacy for creating a more equal world, to a world that offers opportunity to everyone, and to a world that is fair and just. I believe that the memory of our ancestors who bore the evil of the slave trade will continue to guide us, like the libation that our traditional leaders prayed. And culture even endures, because as they were pouring the alcohol on the ground, the Prime Minister of Barbados told me, you see how culture transcends generations. So he says in Barbados, when we're going to have a drink of alcohol, we also pour a little on the ground, and we pour it to our ancestors to ask them to continue to stand behind us. And so I'm not going to inflict a speech on you this evening. I just thank all of you for the great work that you have done, and pray that God takes you safely back home, and that Ghana is your home, and you are all free to visit Ghana whenever you want. We have passed an act that allows people of African descent to seek abode in Ghana. If you want to come home back to the motherland, Ghana is one of the countries that has a law that allows you to come and stay in Ghana. And for all Africans, we have introduced a visa-free regime. And so you don't have to pay for a visa to come to Ghana. And I know the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is working to make the same for the CARICOM countries. And already we have visa waivers with most of the CARICOM countries for Ghana. And so they don't need visas to come here. And so let me just thank everybody, and to say that on this note, the outcome document is accepted, is adopted. We're going to work together to make sure that we're able to achieve the objectives that are in that document. Thank you very much, and God richly bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's the President of our Republic and the AU champion for reparations for Africans and people of African descent. Put your hands together one more time.
Mesdames et messieurs, une fois de plus, le président de la République du Ghana, son Excellence John Dramani Mahama.
When the great Nelson Mandela